Stanley Kubrick's final film, Eyes Wide Shut, means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Some people like myself love it and think it's a masterpiece, some people hate it, some people think it's unfinished, that it has secret messages that expose the Illuminati, and most upsetting to me is that it's cynical and bleak. Because I personally find its overall message to be a hopeful one. It's about compromise and forgiveness and new beginnings. It's about the ups and downs of marriage and how sometimes when you're able to see and accept your partner for who they are, you can come to accept yourself. It's about starting over with a new perspective. In short, it's a Christmas movie. Bill and Alice Harford are a young, attractive married couple living in New York City with their daughter Helena. Bill is a doctor, and Alice is a former art gallery manager who's currently a stay-at-home mom while she's in between jobs. They have a great apartment, they seem to get along fine when the pot isn't making them aggressive, and overall they have it pretty good. But as we come to find out, the two of them have very different outlooks on life. Bill is an idealist. He sees the world how he wants to see it, through a very expensive pair of rose-colored glasses. Alice is more of a realist, someone who tries to see things as they are, and she doesn't shy away from certain truths regardless of how painful they may be. There are many positive aspects to them being opposites in this way, and it's likely what makes their partnership work for the most part. They balance each other out. Alice likely admires and loves Bill for his kindness, ambition, and positive attitude. And likewise, Bill can always count on Alice to be honest with him. Actually, she never lies once during this whole movie, unless you count the part where she tries to say that Mrs. Ziegler's dress is cute, but to be fair, she can barely get the words out.
See my serve now. Guy's terrific.
He's a top man in New York.
Oh, I could have told you that looking at his bill. Listen, go inside.
Unfortunately, there are much darker sides to these two personality types, and this is where Bill and Alice ultimately clash. Bill and Alice's behavior at the Ziegler's Christmas party really lets us in on how different they are from each other right away. Bill is super excited to rub elbows with the rich and powerful, and for Alice, it's more of just date night with Bill. She's not as easily impressed by opulence in the way that Bill is, and she's more concerned as to whether they actually know anybody here. This exchange kind of says it all.
Why do you think Ziegler invites us to these things every year?
This is what you get for making house calls.
Bill spots an old friend from college, Nick Nightingale, playing the piano and decides to go over and say hi. Alice excuses herself to go to the bathroom, they agree to meet at the bar later, but Bill doesn't show up, and not because he's still talking to his old friend. He's made a couple of new ones. Alice is left waiting by herself long enough to get thoroughly hammered and hit on by some random older man named Sandor. She tells him that she's there with her husband, but agrees to dance with him anyway. She then notices what's been keeping Bill, and we find out that one of the things these two have in common is that they're both pretty shameless flirts. However, there are some pretty distinct differences in the way that they go about it. Alice makes it clear from the jump that she is married. She even defends her marriage to Bill when Sandor asks why someone so beautiful would want to be married.
May I ask why a beautiful woman, who could have any man in this room, wants to be married?
Why wouldn't she?
Is it as bad as that?
As good as that.
When he propositions her to go upstairs with him, she refuses, and when things start to escalate, she shuts down the interaction completely. She shows him the old wedding ring and gives him a little condescending bye-bye finger kiss. Meanwhile, Bill doesn't mention Alice once, and takes great care to hide his wedding ring whenever he can. We find out that Bill has actually met one of these women before when he happened upon one of her photo shoots.
I was doing a photo session in Rockefeller Plaza on a very windy day.
You got something in your eye.
Just about half of Fifth Avenue.
Right.
You were such a gentleman. You gave me your handkerchief, which was also clean.
Well, that is the kind of hero I can be sometimes.
Oh, God. Anyway, the two women offer to do some sex with Bill, but he gets called away before he's able to give them a definitive answer and simply leaves them with this.
To be continued?
We find out that Victor Ziegler, the host of this fancy event, is having a little problem. A woman named Mandy has OD'd in one of his 80 bathrooms, and he needs Bill to administer some secret medical care to her, which also answers Alice's question from earlier.
Why do you think Ziegler invites us to these things every year?
You know, just in case Bill is needed for something. Bill looks after Mandy until it seems as though she's going to be okay, and Victor gives him a little semi-threatening let's just keep this between us arm squeeze. He and Alice go home together, do some absent-minded lovemaking, Alice's mind clearly still on the party earlier, and the next day it's back to business as usual. Until it isn't. We see Alice and Bill over the next day going about their usual routines. Bill goes to work and Alice looks after Helena and does some Christmas prep. At the end of the day, they put Helena to bed, smoke a little weed, and just when Bill thinks he's gonna get laid for the second night in a row, Alice goes, "You know what? I'm not letting this go." Alice asks Bill flat out if he had sex with those two girls he was flirting with, and instead of just saying no, which would have technically been the truth, he decides to just lie about everything else that happened.
What are you talking about? I wasn't hitting on anybody. I didn't disappear with anybody. Ziegler wasn't feeling too well. I got called upstairs to see him.
So, you know, we're off to a really bad start here. When Bill tries to flip it around and asks Alice what the guy she was dancing with wanted, she just answers in her usual honest, blunt way.
Sex. Upstairs.
Bill says that that's understandable because that's just what men are like, and this is the thing that kind of pushes Alice to actually being pissed, because by that logic, he's kind of admitting to at least wanting to have sex with the two girls he was flirting with. But Bill disagrees because he believes that he is the exception.
What makes you an exception?
What makes me an exception is that I happen to be in love with you. And because we're married, and because I would never lie to you or hurt you.
And I think Bill doesn't even know he's lying here, because he really does view himself and Alice in a very idealized way. I would like for our marriage to be perfect, therefore it is perfect, and everything's fine. And there's no way that you could have any sexual desires outside of me, because you're a girl. Alice, still annoyed, presses on with questions, but Bill isn't budging. Eventually, she asks Bill if he thinks any of his female patients might have sexual thoughts about him, and this leads to Bill revealing a belief that he has about female sexuality that isn't exactly correct.
Look. Women don't. They basically just don't think like that.
Not this time. It's fiction.
Men have to stick it in every place they can, but for women, it is just about security and commitment and whatever the fuck else.
A little oversimplified, Alice, but yes, something like that.
If you men only knew.
Bill then accuses Alice of trying to make him jealous, and he's finally right about something. It's very clear that Alice feels hurt by the fact that Bill never seems to display any jealous feelings about her, and when she mocks how sure he is of himself, he responds like this.
No. I'm sure of you.
Since Alice is more of a realist, she really doesn't care for the way that Bill speaks in absolutes. I'm sure of you. I know you would never be unfaithful to me, because as the rest of the story illustrates, you really can't be sure of anything in life. You can be pretty sure, you can hope for the best, but the assumption about what someone else close to you would or wouldn't do doesn't make it a fact. In the same way that Bill's idealistic thinking can cause him to be dishonest and not very introspective, Alice's aversion to sugarcoating things can make her cruel. She's honest to a fault because she doesn't care who the truth hurts, and she's about to use it as a weapon. Alice drops an absolute bomb and tells Bill that last year when they were on vacation, she experienced an attraction to another man that was so strong, she was tempted to be unfaithful.
He glanced at me as he walked past, just a glance. Nothing more. But I could hardly move.
Nothing about her attraction had anything to do with commitment or security or money, all of the things that Bill seems to associate with female sexuality. She never even spoke to the guy. He was just a young naval officer who was so hot that Alice lost her damn mind for a second.
And I thought if he wanted me, even if it was only for one night, I was ready to give up everything.
And the real kicker is the little detail that it had nothing to do with how much she loved Bill, because at the time she says he was dearer to her than ever. Her story ends without her ever having acted on this impulse, but Bill's whole world has been knocked off its axis. Before he can even scrape together a response, the phone rings with news of one of his patients passing away and he has to leave to make a house call, leaving this marital conflict unfinished. An open wound that lingers until they're able to forgive and move forward. But until then, Bill has to go on a little adventure, one that will chip away at and eventually shatter his rigid idealistic thinking. Bill has two main beliefs that need to be disproven in order for him to move past this conflict and onto a better future. The first being his view of women, that female sexual desire is inherently conflated with partnership and security. This idea that women just don't think like that is preventing him from seeing his wife as her own person, and understanding women in general.
Men have to stick it in every place they can, but for women it is just about security and commitment and whatever the fuck else.
A little oversimplified, Alice, but yes, something like that.
No, Bill. In fact, as relationship therapist Esther Perel puts it, it's quite the opposite.
What seems to be so puzzling is that the very ingredients that nurture love, mutuality, reciprocity, protection, worry, responsibility for the other, are sometimes the very ingredients that stifle desire. And women have known that forever, because anything that will bring up parenthood will usually decrease the erotic charge.
The second thing he really needs to understand is that associating with these wealthy, powerful people, or perhaps even eventually becoming one of them, isn't gonna bring him some kind of greater fulfillment than he has now. I mean, he isn't exactly struggling to get by. He has a pretty nice life. I mean, he certainly has a lot of walking around money. Yet he has a very distinct fascination with the idea of extreme wealth. Sky's the limit wealth. You need a password to get in wealth. Bill has a very starstruck response to these types of people, and it's the combination of this and his sort of narrow view of women that causes him to behave the way he does around the overdose situation, for example. Bill sees fit to give Mandy a lecture about how she can't keep taking drugs like this, and I mean, of course. He's a doctor, she almost died, you know, don't do heroin.
You're gonna be okay this time. But you can't keep doing this.
But what's interesting is Bill doesn't lecture Victor for his part in all of it. You can't keep doing this could also apply to sneaking off to have sex with other women at you and your wife's Christmas party. And not that Bill knows this yet, but Victor is going to a giant orgy tomorrow, and can you just fucking hold your horses? I mean, Jesus Christ, guy. He's disgusted by his wife's thoughts of infidelity, but okay with his male friend actually engaging in it.
Now, throughout history, men practically had a license to cheat, with little consequence, and supported by a host of biological and evolutionary theories that justified their need to roam. So the double standard is as old as adultery itself.
Since Bill is of the opinion that that's just what men are like, he seems unfazed by Victor's behavior, and since he also looks up to him, he does keep the incident between them, even going so far as to lie to Alice about it. But Bill has got to get it through his head that this guy is not his friend. He is just using him. He's really not that much different from Mandy in that sense. But unfortunately, much like his beliefs about women, he has to learn the truth the hard way. When Bill goes to check in on his recently deceased patient's daughter, Marion, she shocks him by throwing herself at him just a few feet away from her father's dead body. She's likely aware that Bill is married, she herself is engaged, but is convinced she's in love with Bill and throws herself at him all the same. Bill is pretty freaked out by this because he barely knows this woman, and what's even weirder is that her boyfriend Carl looks like a discount version of him. Bill uses Carl showing up as an opportunity to get the hell out, and he just wanders around town as he continues to be plagued by images of Alice banging that young naval officer.
I don't ever want to see it again! Ever!
He gets harassed by some holiday homophobes and eventually gets propositioned by a sex worker called Domino. He takes her up on the offer, and just as he's about to go through with it, Alice calls asking where he is. Some temporary guilt takes over after hearing his wife's voice, and he doesn't have sex with Domino but pays her anyway because, you know.
That is the kind of hero I can be sometimes.
Bill's behavior here is pretty interesting. It really doesn't take much for him to decide to be unfaithful to his wife, something that he was sure hours before that he would never do. Alice confesses sexual thoughts about another man, sparking a jealousy inside of him he didn't know he had. Very shortly after, Marion throws herself at him, further challenging Bill's idea that women only experience sexual attraction within the context of commitment and security.
Marion, I don't think you realize.
I do. Even if I'm never to see you again.
Even if it was only for one night.
Marion barely knows Bill. She comes from a wealthy family and is engaged to another man. She gains nothing from pursuing him aside from giving in to her desire. He then gets harassed in the street in a way that's very emasculating for him. And all of a sudden, when he's at such a low point of utter despair and frustration, he gets the opportunity to cheat. This for him is an opportunity to take back control, to reclaim his masculinity and sense of self, with the added bonus of getting back at Alice for hurting him. And if not for her phone call, it really seemed like he fully intended to go through with it. His opinions on the difference between male and female sexuality seem to influence this idea that him physically cheating on her is the same as her thinking about cheating on him. So old-fashioned, Bill.
Adultery has existed since marriage was invented, and so too the taboo against it. So much so that this is the only commandment that is repeated twice in the Bible. Once for doing it, and once just for thinking about it.
It's the same with Alice in the sense that there were a lot of layers of hurt that led to her decision to lash out at Bill in the way that she did. He didn't meet her at the bar like they agreed, he just kind of stood her up and left her there. She's annoyed that Bill wasn't jealous in the same way that she was over their separate flirtations at the party. Plus, she ended up having to listen to a bunch of sexist remarks from the guy she was dancing with. He thinks she's too beautiful to be married, as if choosing to be monogamous and not making herself available to other men is some kind of a waste. The idea that she should be unfaithful because of her beauty upsets her as much as Bill's idea that she would never be unfaithful solely based on the fact that she's a wife and mother. She's tired of having other people assume her desires or lack thereof because of what she is in relation to them. She feels taken for granted, she doesn't feel seen, so she lashes out in the most hurtful way she can. Her harsh words in turn threaten Bill's idealistic worldview and sense of identity, so he seeks the comfort of another woman in order to take back control, to escape his pain rather than face it.
Often, when you are attracted by the gaze of another, it isn't just because you want to leave the person that you are with, but it is because you want to leave the person that you have yourself become. And it isn't just that you want to meet somebody else, but you want to meet another self. There is no greater other than a different version of yourself.
Alice's phone call has deterred him from having sex with someone else thus far, but he's still not ready to go home. So he decides to visit his piano pal Nick that he reconnected with at the Christmas party, and the two of them briefly catch up when Nick suddenly gets a phone call telling him the location and password to his next gig. Apparently Nick plays blindfolded for a mysterious group that's into some pretty wild shit. Bill pretty much forces Nick to give him the address, and just like that, the puss hunt is back on, boys, and this time, it's cosplay. Bill needs a robe and a mask to get into this high-end orgy, and this is the point of the film where Bill starts really just throwing around money like it's going out of style. He tries to call in a favor to an old patient who owns a costume store, but turns out it's under new ownership, and Bill is going to have to do some serious bribing if he wants to get a costume this late at night.
And I'd be happy to pay you $100 over the rental price for the inconvenience.
Some real weird shit goes down at this place, which we'll get back to later, but anyway. Bill gets his costume, gets into the party using the password, and oh my god, they're casting spells and doing sex, Illuminati exposed, we got him. Bill is approached by a mysterious woman who's totally Mandy from the Christmas party. There's a big mystery made over it, but I mean, we pretty much know it's her. Anyway, she recognizes Bill as an outsider right away and tells him he should leave before it's too late, but he doesn't listen and strolls around this orgy like he owns the place. He runs into her again, and she's like, no, for real, you need to go, these people are dangerous, and what do you know, he gets caught. Bill exposed, we got him. Bill is threateningly told to remove his clothes when the mysterious woman suddenly appears to offer herself up in exchange for Bill to be let go. Bill is set free, but with a terrifying warning.
You are free, but I warn you. If you make any further inquiries, or if you say a single word to anyone about what you have seen, there will be the most dire consequences for you and your family.
Bill exclusively looks outward for solutions to his problems. It's as if he's physically running from self-analysis throughout this whole movie. He cannot just sit in his discomfort. He's either walking here, driving there, cancel my appointments, I'm trying to smash. Anytime he gets a moment to think, his thoughts are completely occupied with images of his wife's hypothetical infidelity. He refuses to look inward because that would mean acknowledging his own mistakes, thus challenging the idealistic image of himself he spent a lifetime building up. Bill is not going to crack until he's presented with the possibility that he really could lose everything that matters to him. Alice definitely has some room to grow here as well, but since she's a much more introspective person than Bill, her revelations come to her in the form of a dream.
Oh, I just had such a horrible dream.
This dream allows Alice to play out a specific sexual fantasy involving the man from the hotel, where she can not only make Bill jealous, but also humiliate him.
He was kissing me. And then we were making love. Then there were all these other people around us. Hundreds of them everywhere. Everyone was fucking. And then I was fucking other men. And I knew you could see me in the arms of all these men, just fucking all these men. And I wanted to make fun of you, to laugh in your face.
As Bill coaxes her to divulge the entire dream to him, her body language is completely different from their fight earlier. When she's at her angriest, she constantly moves away from Bill. When it's time for the story about the man from the hotel, she makes sure to coldly look right into Bill's eyes when she delivers the most upsetting details of her story. When she tells him about what happened in her dream, she cries, she holds him, she lovingly strokes his face, all the while dripping with shame, panic, and remorse. Even though she doesn't say it with words, she's super sorry about everything. Punishing Bill for lying to her and taking her for granted doesn't bring her the satisfaction she thought it would. She's given a taste of how it would really feel to torture this person that she loves very much, and it feels horrible. Unfortunately, Bill is still too blinded by his anger, which this look suggests is quickly turning into contempt, to see or care about the remorse she feels. And contempt is a dangerous place to be in a relationship, especially for Bill, who's determined to hold on to his anger as a tool to free himself from any guilt he would feel about pursuing an extramarital affair.
Contempt, I think, is the top one. Yeah. Contempt is the killer of them all. Because in the contempt, there is there's the degradation of the other. It's that complete, you're nothing. You're nothing. I can kill you with that one gaze, that one eyebrow that goes up, you know, who do you think you are? What are, and that's it, you're done.
The reason that the film is primarily focused on Bill is because he has the most to learn. Alice has some things she can work on in her relationship as well, but it's much easier for her to resolve because she always tries to be realistic about things. She doesn't have a completely distorted worldview like Bill does, she just has some issues with lashing out, so the universe is just like, just send her a dream, she'll figure it out. Bill is a different story. He needs a lot more work. If you think that Eyes Wide Shut takes place during Christmas time purely for aesthetics and some nice lens flare here and there, think again. Bill is very much your classic Christmas movie protagonist. He's got the wrong idea about what really matters in life, and the universe steps in to set him straight. It's like paganistic It's a Wonderful Life. It's like if George Bailey was too stupid to know that Mr. Potter was a piece of shit.
Quite a cigar, Mr. Potter.
You like it? I'll send you a box.
Beautiful scotch.
That's a 25-year-old. I'll send you over a case.
I swear, George would have never put up with any of this stuff.
And Bill, I probably... Oh, I know I don't have to mention this, but this is just between us.
All right. Oh.
The problem with Bill is that he thinks he's a George Bailey type, but he's just a Scrooge worshiper. You've got It's a Wonderful Life, where George's guardian angel steps in and goes, "Don't kill yourself, don't wish you were never born, you're such a good guy, and this is what the world would be like without you." You've got A Christmas Carol, where Ebenezer Scrooge is such a bad guy, he has to be haunted into being a good guy. Bill is this weird in-between version where he's not a bad man. There are plenty of good things about him. He's polite, he treats people with respect for the most part, he's good to his family, but he's just on a bad path. He's willfully naive. He's become enamored with the idea of having a life like his friend Victor. He's walking through life with blinders on. Eyes wide shut, you know. So instead of an angel or a ghost literally showing up to explain to him why he's wrong, it's a little bit more subtle. The amount of interruptions, detours, and warnings that Bill encounters throughout this story really feels like divine intervention after a while. The universe is just really taking great pity on Bill for whatever reason because his luck is off the charts. Every time he's about to do something that could really screw his life up, he's pulled away by external forces. About to cheat on your wife with those 2 models? Victor needs you. About to say something you'll regret? Phone rings. Trying to cheat on your wife again? Wife calls. About to get in some really serious trouble? Let him go. Bill is given so many second chances in spite of the fact that he keeps spiraling towards self-destruction. But like I said, it's gonna take a lot for Bill to open his eyes, and just one night of shenanigans isn't gonna cut it. He has to experience the aftermath as well. Bill, of course, ignores the warnings about inquiring further into what happened last night and goes to look for Nick. But Nick has been removed from his hotel by 2 hired thugs and sent away.
I noticed Mr. Nightingale had a bruise on his cheek, and, to be perfectly honest, I also thought he looked a little scared.
He goes to return his costume and is surprised to find that his mask is missing, and even more surprised to find that the costume store owner Milich has now added his underage daughter to the list of things you can rent from him. The night before, he caught 2 men with his daughter and threatened to call the police, but similarly to Bill buying his way into the shop, Milich changed his mind when the right amount of money was thrown his way.
Things change.
Bill uses money and his status as a medical professional to get his way over and over again throughout this story. They give him access to people and places he should not have access to, all the while giving him a sense of dominance. Money makes Bill feel like he's in control. When he doesn't sleep with Domino but pays her anyway, it's so that he can get something out of the interaction that makes him feel important. But Milich shows him that just because you're the one with the money doesn't mean you're the one with the upper hand. It's actually the person who names the price that's in control in those situations. You need something from them. They may even go so far as to make you think the dollar amount was your idea.
$100?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Well, okay. How about $200?
$200 over the rental price?
Yes.
Now Bill has to live with the fact that he's given hundreds of dollars to an absolute scumbag. And he can't even go to the police without implicating himself because that $200 over the rental price is on the receipt.
That was $150 for the rental, $200 you said for my trouble.
Still plagued by images of Alice with another man, Bill cancels his appointments and drives back to the location of the party where he's given another warning to stop inquiring about what happened. He tries to hang out at home for a little bit, but he still can't let go of his anger towards his wife, even though her anger towards him has dissolved at this point because of her dream last night. Her loving stare from the dinner table is genuine, but Bill still can't look at her without replaying the details of her dream in his head.
Everyone was fucking. And then I was fucking other men.
Bill goes back to his office and ends up calling Marion, presumably in an attempt to cash in on her obsession with him. But once again, luck steps in and Carl answers the phone instead, preventing Bill from making yet another huge mistake. But still determined that cheating is going to make him feel better, he goes back to Domino's place. And I really think he might be broke now because it looks like he's going to try to pay her in treats, but she's not there. He tries to get with her roommate instead, but she's like, look, I have to tell you something. The reason that Domino isn't here is because she got diagnosed with HIV today. Bill's like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I'm gonna head out. He finds himself aimlessly walking around again, and this time he discovers he's being followed. He picks up a newspaper with the headline, "Lucky to be alive." I mean, go home, Bill. When he opens this paper, he sees an article about a former Miss New York who is now in critical condition due to a drug overdose, and uh-oh, her name is Amanda. Bill goes to the hospital where she was taken, posing as her doctor, but he's too late. She's dead. Mandy represents a lot of things for Bill. He objectifies and romanticizes her. To him, she's a version of Alice that he can rescue, that he can have the upper hand with. He wants to escape with her rather than engage with Alice. Mostly, she's just another version of him. I mean, in the context of a classic Christmas narrative, she is very much the ghost of Christmas yet to come. According to the news article, she had aspirations to be an actress, and she had, quote, many friends in the fashion and entertainment worlds. Much like Bill, she probably thought that associating with these people was going to bring her some kind of happiness and fulfillment, that they had her best interests at heart, but before she knew it, she was being used and disposed of. Just as Bill is leaving the hospital, Victor Ziegler gives him a call and arranges a meeting with him. A meeting where much is revealed. He tells Bill that he knows what's been going on with him for the past 24 hours and, well, basically summarizes my issues with Bill in one sentence.
And I think you just might have the wrong idea about one or two things.
Bill tries to lie his way out of it one last time, but Victor is not having it.
Please, Bill, no games. I was there.
And it's revealed that Bill is dealing with a level of wealth and power that he cannot even comprehend.
Listen, Bill, I don't think you realize what kind of trouble you were in last night. Who do you think those people were? Those were not just ordinary people there. If I told you their names, I'm not going to tell you their names, but if I did, I don't think you'd sleep so well.
A detail I've always found interesting is that we're never really told what line of work Victor is in. We only see his wealth as if he's completely defined by what he has rather than who he is or what he does. Turns out Victor's the one who's been having Bill followed, which he shows no remorse for. He has no regard whatsoever for Nick's well-being and seems to think that he actually deserved worse for blabbing about the party.
Okay, he had a bruise on his face. That's a hell of a lot less than he deserves.
And boy, he really couldn't care less about Mandy dying. I mean, when Bill asks who Mandy was, Victor just calls her a hooker.
She was a hooker.
He reduces this woman who, according to the news article, had hopes and dreams and a sister who loved her to just one dismissive word.
Sorry, but that's what she was.
He swears up and down that her sacrifice at the masked orgy the other night was a charade, a phony conflict to put enough fear into Bill to keep him away. Bill challenges this notion based on the very compelling detail that Mandy is dead.
Do you mind telling me what kind of fucking charade ends with somebody turning up dead?
But Victor insists that her death was her own fault and what happened at the party had nothing to do with her real death.
You've been way out of your depth for the last 24 hours. You want to know what kind of a charade? I'll tell you exactly what kind. That whole play-acted, take-me, phony sacrifice that you've been jerking yourself off with had absolutely nothing to do with her real death. Nothing happened to her after you left that party that hadn't happened to her before.
Now, I don't know how much of what Victor is saying is true or false, and that's by design. It's really up to you. But I think there is one thing that everyone can agree on, and it's that these people fucking suck. Bill finally sees Victor for what he is. He's not his friend. He's not at all someone who deserves his respect, and certainly not someone you should aspire to be if you want to hold on to your humanity.
Someone died. It happens all the time.
And just in case all of that wasn't enough, Bill comes home to the most haunting reality check of them all. When Bill comes home to find the missing mask placed neatly next to Alice while she sleeps, he completely breaks. The ideal is shattered, he wakes from his dream, and he's ready to finally tell the truth. The idea that these people have been in his home while his wife and daughter slept just to threaten him in this way thoroughly strips away any anger he had left towards Alice. I mean, in that first moment when he discovers the mask on his pillow, she could have been lying there dead for all he knew. As he breaks down in her arms, he says he's gonna tell her everything, and we abruptly cut to the aftermath of him having done just that. Alice seems to be in shock. She's clearly devastated, and I mean, I can't blame her. I mean, that's a lot to take in. Jesus Christ. But unfortunately, there isn't time to finish their talk just then because they made plans with their daughter, and being decent parents, they don't want her to get wise to what's going on. So they have to put this on hold for now. They take Helena Christmas shopping, and when she's out of earshot, Bill asks Alice what they should do. And having learned a lot from her dream and having some time to process what Bill has told her, she responds calmly and with a lot of grace.
Maybe I think we should be grateful that we've managed to survive through all of our adventures, whether they were real or only a dream.
And she's right. In the end, they've been given a gift. Like I said before, Bill's luck is pretty incredible. Much like George Bailey and Ebenezer Scrooge before him, he's given a glimpse of how bad things could be and returned to reality as if the whole thing were just a dream. I mean, I think they should move, because this is not okay. But, you know, he comes out of it relatively unscathed in comparison to what could have happened. Their eyes are open now, and they can move forward.
The important thing is we're awake now. And hopefully for a long time to come.
Today in the West, most of us are going to have 2 or 3 relationships or marriages. And some of us are going to do it with the same person. Your first marriage is over. Would you like to create a second one together?
Neither partner needs to change completely for the other one either. Opposites attract for a reason. Alice likely enjoys Bill's positive attitude and optimism. Some healthy touches of idealism are okay here and there. Those are the kind of people who aspire to make the world a better place. It's when it escalates into entitlement, black and white thinking, and detachment from reality where we can get into some huge trouble. Likewise, Bill probably likes the fact that Alice is an open book most of the time. She's honest, blunt, and there's no guesswork involved in what she's thinking about. It's just that when you have a tendency to overshare, it's difficult to understand people who aren't always as open as you are. It makes it a little bit more challenging to identify the boundaries of someone who isn't as comfortable as you are with sharing every single thing. So while Bill would do well to learn to open up to his wife more and be more of an honest guy, Alice can maybe make some adjustments to the degree to which she unloads sometimes. Bill is too delicate. He can't always handle it. It's about striking that balance between sexual openness and sexual privacy. I'll let Dr. Ruth take this one.
Some people think that in their interpersonal relationships that they have to tell each other everything. Not so. If a couple is together, I don't want her to say to him, my last lover had a much bigger penis. I wanted to keep her mouth shut. I don't want him to say, the woman that I had before you had much bigger breasts and I like bigger breasts. Keep your mouth shut.
So, you know, they'll figure it out. And Alice has a pretty good idea where they can start.
There is something very important that we need to do as soon as possible.
What's that?
Fuck.
That's right. That's right. Attaboy, Clarence.